Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Sound Bites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today. Today, we have the unique opportunity to have a conversation about a subject that I think will upset the left, the right, and probably a lot of people in between. It's rare that we get such an opportunity, and while it's a little bit daunting, I feel it's something that's absolutely necessary. In fact, because it made me unsure if I should even talk about this, I'm going to. And that's reparations. Now, if this is the first time you've been to our channel, we thank you and welcome you here. And we do long-form political commentary. Every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you, talking about all the issues that matter to you as an expression of free speech. We do that on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, DLive, and all social media that will allow us to do so. So we hope that every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, from anywhere in the world, you join us by chat, text, or even calling in and express your free speech. So on to today's subject, which is talking about reparations. It's a subject that's been gaining a lot of attention most recently, since about, February, actually. And it's becoming more and more prevalent in the news. There is news out today in Oakland and in Evanston, Illinois, and in Bristol in the United Kingdom. And we're going to touch on all of that. But there's something interesting about this subject. This is something I've been covering for, I think it's 13, maybe 16 years. That I've been talking about this. And as one of the few political commentators who has written over 2 million words, who have over 700 hours of information out there in video, I have the opportunity to look back in the past at what I have said before and what I am saying now. And I want to give context to it all and see what's changed from 2005 to 2021. To do that, let me go back to 1989. Now, back in 1989, long before many people who were watching this were even born, it's before AOC even existed. Yes, I was 21. I was 21 years old at that time and going to college. And that was the year that John Conyers came out with his bill. That was Bill H.R. 3745. This was in the 101st Congress. And he put out this bill, and its express purpose was to address reparations, to determine whether the government of the United States owes an apology to Black Americans who are descendants of the slaves of the original 13 colonies and the initial growth of our nation, for slavery from 1619 up until 1860, and to determine whether or not African Americans, Black Americans, are still suffering from the effects of slavery, and to determine that should there be any compensation to the descendants of those slaves from between 1619 and 1860 because of what happened with slavery and also because of Jim Crow. And to find out if America should apologize, if reparations are warranted, how should that be paid? Should it be in cash? Should it be in programs? What should America do as part of those reparations? So that was back in 1989. I was a 21-year-old man and really not paying attention to politics, like most people in their 20s. I had no idea if this made any sense, if there was an impact, and I really didn't pay attention to it. Fast forward. In 2005, after being in the Marines, after getting out of college, after living in the Soviet Union and seeing communism firsthand, I had a very different point of view. I was very much involved in politics. I was very concerned about the U.S. economy and where it was going to go. At the time, I was 35 at the time, 37. And I had more involvement and perhaps a bit more angry as well. And it was at that time that I first started doing the political commentary, initially starting off as just a commentary, speaking what I was thinking at the time. And part of what I said at the time, the issue of reparations had come up yet again, as it has since 1989. And it was in December of 2005 that I wrote the article Reparations for Black African Americans. And it's an interesting article, and I do invite you to read it over. At the time, I was generally in favor of reparations. It's a position that I mostly hold to this day. Now, at the same time, I'm opposed to the suggestions of reparations that are now existing in 2021, as opposed to the idea in 2005. Why is that? What changed? Well, let's get rid of the stupid questions first, the stupid things that people would sometimes say about it. In 2005, I was richer than I am today in 2021. I had more wealth in 2005 than I have today in 2021. So this isn't about money for me. It wasn't about getting a check or having free money. I understand then at 37 and more so now at 53 that there is always a cost, and that cost is not necessarily just to the individual, but it affects the entire local community, state, and of course, national community. There is an impact. There is always a cost for these things. So free money isn't the answer. And that's not why I'm so upset, why I don't agree with the movement towards reparations today. So is it because of my politics? Well, at 37, I was a Republican. At 53, I'm a Republican. I've been a conservative Republican for a very long time. And that didn't change. It's not about the politics, quite honestly. There's more to it than just what party affiliation I have, which candidates I'm trying to get elected. So let's throw that out the window too. That's not it. And it's not because I hate my race. I've heard that a lot. I've been called all the names. And just because I have a different political affiliation doesn't mean I don't look in the mirror and realize I'm a Black Puerto Rican, that I don't love myself, my family, my friends. Nor does it mean that I can't love my family, my friends who are of other colors and other races. It's not about skin tone. It's not about where your people, your ancestors, or even you yourself came from. I take people based on themselves. I judge them and their character by what they present to me, not by the color of the skin they were born with. That's a big difference than what we see today. And that is part of the problem. But let's go on. So in 2005, what was I saying about reparations? Why reparations? In my mind, it's simple. The nation is never healed and never will heal until admission of its actions up to and including the civil rights movement is made. Monetary repayment is due, made perhaps in other manners besides direct cash payments, perhaps a fixed tax credit that is used over a lifetime and transferable to offspring until used. But denial of the fact of how this nation came to be is no excuse. We will never get beyond the nation's largest and most subtle activity, which is the division of Americans based on race, if we cannot come to terms with the past. At the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, all the way through, that is the essence of the point. America has a problem with race. We divide ourselves. We are separated by political factions looking for greater and greater power over the American people based on separation, most notably because of the color of someone's skin. And that's wrong. Racism, whether it's directed against whites or blacks, Latinos, Asians, or any other human being on the planet, is wrong. determining whether someone is a good or bad person based on the color of the skin or the location they were born in is inherently wrong. And we disavow it. We do not approve of that. I don't care what color, skin, creed, religion, sex, or sexual preference you may have. That's just wrong. And anytime that we see people interject those factors into a discussion about reparations, they're wrong. They've misunderstood the whole point. Because I believe the true point of reparations should be to remove those barriers, to eliminate those barriers through understanding. And yes, I do think there is a monetary component of that as well, because true forgiveness, true understanding does include some pain. It does include some action to show that it's not just a matter of contrition, just a bunch of empty words, but to show that there is actually something concrete behind that. But that's not what we're hearing from politicians these days. That's not the way the public is being trained to be able to look at this issue. And yes, I do mean we are being trained to look at reparations in a very specific manner. And that manner is detrimental to America and to the very people that they claim to be helping. But in 2005, in December, I was speaking about this a lot. I went on to say, and this is from my Black Entertainment blog site that is currently down. And at that site, but I was able to pull this up from December of 21st of 2005, the romanticized or politicized, if you wish, remembrance of the past has clouded many facts about the past. The absence of slavery in the North is a great example as well. These are all kinds of things we need to have presented in their true light. Honest information leads to clear and full understanding, nothing less. If there must be a Black History Month, which I do not think there needs to be if honest, unfiltered information is disseminated, then it should be there to express the truth and removing ambiguity or misconceptions that have evolved over time. I think that's a very clear statement. I think it's a very accurate statement. We have seen a large amount of misconceptions, misunderstandings, and just ideas to separate people. What the slavery was, how long it lasted, what Jim Crow was, and how that affected the nation, and comparing that and equating that to what it is, to what's happening today, is unfair, unrealistic, and problematic. I look at those today, the youth of today who may be watching this video, and you'll say to me, well, Mike, don't you understand? There's racism that is rampant in this nation. And I say to you, there is some, but it's not rampant. It's not oppressive. It's entirely different than what was happening in the 1970s as I grew up. We have improved in this nation and the world for the most part. And we should understand that. That doesn't mean that the struggle ends, that we cannot continue to improve, but it doesn't mean that 2021 is the same thing as 1619. It's not. But if you listen to some political leaders, you would think it is. That's just not the case. Now, I also went on in 2007 to talk about this in reference to an article by Michael Medved and to address some of his concerns, some of the things he had made in an argument against reparations. And I did even further expand on the idea I had for how reparations could be used as a benefit to the nation as well as to individuals. Because the question isn't, did reparations happen? Or rather, that they should happen. Because slavery did happen. And slavery did create the foundation on which our nation has been built. And everything at some point goes back to those initial slaves and the work that they did that was never repaid. But let's be fair about that. Let's look at, we are now past that point by quite some hundreds of years. And we have to look forward to being able to live in this society together. And it does no one any good to destroy our country, destroy our society, destroy everything those slaves built just so that we can say, and you are a bad person. Your ancestors were a bad person. It doesn't help anyone. We have to look forward. We have to say, how can we do this and maintain our society and improve our society going forward? And in 2007, I offered a suggestion about that, which you can read on the screen. But that's not what we're looking at today. That's not what people are talking about today. Today, people are talking about reparations as a means of political advantage, of a way of being able to punish other individuals, a way of being able to achieve a political agenda. And that's a problem. That's problematic. Looking at, we recently were talking about reparations back on February 21st of 2021. And we were talking about it in context of a request or an allegation that it was racism and reparations that were critical to people of color dealing with COVID-19. And in part, we said it would decrease slightly the account of people's ability to prevent modalities like masks, and black people are too poor to buy a mask. That's what they're saying. You're too poor to buy a mask. You're too poor to not work at the counter at McDonald's. And you're stressed out because you watch the news. And you don't have enough money. So that's why black people get COVID more. That is stupid. And I am debunking each of those things one by one for you right here. Now, if you think I am wrong about this, I would love to hear that. But I can tell you that if we were to put other people in those same scenarios, they would or would not get COVID just as much as they already do. And giving someone a check doesn't make them better. I've actually done the math. If you were to take everyone and all black people in America, you give them reparations for approximately $32 trillion, works out to about $3,000 per person. And $3,000 per person is not going to suddenly make you move into a new condo or buy a brand new house. It's not going to build you a new multi-billion-dollar business. It's just a check. It's the same thing as what we're seeing now with the COVID-19 disbursements. No one is suddenly getting rich off of $1,400. I know Nancy Pelosi thinks that it's the same thing as being on unemployment, and unemployment is a stimulus, and the COVID payment is also a stimulus. It's not. It is not, and it's not turning people into multi-billionaires. Neither will reparations. It is a lie, and they are using the fear of COVID to stop people from thinking and to make sure that they are both, you have the people who say, free money, give it to me now, and you have the people who are like, oh my God, we've got to do something about COVID, and you got the BLM people all coming together and saying, oh yeah, give black people extra money. That's not the answer. It doesn't stop the underlying division in this nation based on race, which we are seeing mostly from the far left, not Democrats, the far left, progressives, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, the BLM crowd, the Antifa crowd. They're the extremists, and they're pushing this, and giving them a check is not going to make them suddenly stop. Let me get back to the main point. And I want to highlight that because I think it's very important. We've seen people trying to use reparations as a tool. You have COVID because you didn't get reparations. You're poor because you didn't get reparations. You're working the job you work at because you didn't get reparations, if you happen to be a person of color. Actually, even if you're not, everything you have is because of reparations. That's just not true. It's just not true. If we were to give every American, every Black American a check, just like we just gave every American a check for the COVID relief, people aren't suddenly changing their lifestyles. That doesn't mean that you suddenly open up a business, as we mentioned. It doesn't mean that you suddenly are able to buy a new house, a car, a house. It doesn't change those things. It helps you, maybe, but it doesn't change anything. And I'm not going to insult your intelligence to make you think that, oh yeah, it will make a difference, because that's all that's going to change. And it's free money. No one will have to pay for that. That money just will appear out of nowhere. That's not accurate. That's not the truth. That is what's being sold, but it's not. And that's why you hear people from the left saying, well, if you oppose reparations, you must be racist, you must be evil. No, I actually am concerned about America being able to afford trillions, and we're talking about $32 trillion worth of money if we're being accurate about what we're going to spend. America can't afford that. Not at all. So there is a serious cost here, and it has a serious impact. And we have to understand that. And it's not being used to end the discussion on race. It's being used to expand it. And that's a problem. It's a problem that's so bad, it's gone and been exported to other countries. In particular, we've exported that to England. As the BBC reports in its March 2nd article, Bristol Council passes slave trade reparations motion. There are problems with this. As mentioned by Councillor Steve Smith, we believe the motion to have reparations risk exasperating some divisions by promoting a binary view of the world when the reality is much more complicated. Understandably, the goal is for some people to be a very positive one, to say, let's end the racial division. Let's heal. And to heal, we have to acknowledge that there was an existing problem in the first place. And this is a means to do that healing. That's great, except we're not hearing people say that that's what this is about. It's not about healing. It's about punishment. It's about emphasizing a problem that doesn't necessarily exist. And it's creating new divisions and new problems in its process. The article goes on from the BBC to quote the Green Party councillor, which would be in the Americas in the equivalent of the socialist, the Democratic Socialists of America, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, essentially. And the Green Party councillor, Cleo Clark, says that reparations is not a paycheck for the descendants of people who were enslaved. It's a process outlined by the UN, which looks for holistic repair. This includes public apology, social justice initiatives, education, cultural projects, commemorative ceremonies, affirmative action, and much more. Well, actually, it is about a paycheck. In fact, I just showed you where that was the case. As we were talking about just a moment ago, and I was showing you that this was from Science Direct, that this is about a paycheck. And it is about division of individuals. Because America's already had affirmative action. It hasn't been the fix. It didn't answer anything. If anything, it created more divisions amongst people, if we're to be honest. And social justice, as used by social justice warriors, has destroyed our cinema, our arts, our ability to enjoy things together. I mean, look at Star Wars. Look at, well, not just our entertainment, but look at our schools. We have schools and businesses like Coca-Cola and Binghamton University and Cornell University, where we have students and people are being told that because you're born with a certain skin color, you're a bad person, that you have inherent bias, that you have a privilege over others, and that you need to be punished for that. because that's what the SJWs are asking for. That's what the whole white privilege argument is. You're born with a color, you inherently are a bad person. You know, that's racism. That is a racist thing. Because if I were to say that about someone who is black or Jewish or Chinese, or name the region, the race, the religion, whatever you want to put in there, and if you were to say that about those people, it would be called out, denounced across the world. Then why do we do this about white people? Why are we exporting this idea about whites? How is that unifying for anyone to say you are inherently evil and therefore you should be punished? And by the way, reparations is one of the ways we're going to punish you. That doesn't bring people together. That's an argument that separates people. That's not what I was talking about in 2005. When I was 37, I wanted an end to the racial division in America. And to say that we could heal, to end the ability of people to say, well, you did this and now you must be punished for it. Well, they did that. Their ancestors did that. We have atoned for that now. And let's go forward. That issue will never again be something we can continue to use. That's my thought in 2005. That's my thought today. That's not what's being offered around the world. Kemi Badenoch, who is a minister for the equivalent of a congressman in the United States, is what she holds the seat of in England. And she had this to say, and I think it's important.
And it goes without saying that the recent fad to decolonize maths, decolonize engineering, decolonize the sciences that we have seen across our universities to make race the defining principle of what is studied is not just misguided, but actively opposed to the fundamental purpose of education.
And there we go. The fundamental issue is race. Is we are using race to divide people. That's not unity. That's not unifying. And it's a great way to cause more harm for longer term than not. It actually promotes racism on multiple levels to multiple different peoples. That doesn't help anyone. I think Kemi Badenoch got it completely right. You know, right now, there is, as according to the Washington Post, it's been announced that the city of Evanston, Illinois, is going to lead the country with the first program for reparations for blacks. And one of the first things that they voted to do is to spend $400,000 and to give it out as a $25,000 grant for people to be able to get homes and houses. That means it's 16 people. They're giving away grants to 16 people to appease for all the reparations in Jim Crow and under slavery. That doesn't seem very fair. That doesn't seem very effective. 16 people? Because it's $400,000, $25,000 for each grant. That's 16 people. That doesn't seem to be reparations that are going to change people's lives and help them for the better. 16 people in a city of 75,000, with 16% of the population, about 10,000 people that are black or people of color. But it is part of a $10 million package, a package that is paid for, apparently, by people taking drugs. It's paid for out of marijuana sales, legal marijuana, medical marijuana, a drug. So the more people take a drug, a psychoactive drug, whether you agree with it or not is not the question right now. It is the fact that it is a psychoactive drug. And now the city of Evanston is going to sell that drug. And the more people who become users of that drug, the more they'll have money to gain $10 million to then give back to a bunch of people to appease them and to atone for reparations from 1619 until 1860. That doesn't sound exactly right. And again, I have a problem with this reparations program. You're using someone's drug use to fund a giveaway program. And that's supposed to end racism. That's supposed to make people more equal. It's supposed to lift everyone up. I don't think that's how that works. Drug use isn't really known for lifting people up. It's used to destroy people and bring them down. There's an inherent problem in that, at least in the wording of it. But there's more of a problem to this if you continue down the article, much further down in the article, and you eventually get to the point where some people are mentioning there is an inherent problem here. That reparations are supposed to repair harm to injured parties. So if you're telling someone what they can do with this money, it appears to be a discriminatory practice. Now you have discrimination on discrimination. That's interesting, because that's being said by Tina Padden, who is black and is one of the elected officials in Evanston who voted against this. Another individual who happens to be Cicely Fleming, who's an alderwoman, a member of the local government, and she also has a problem with the reparations in Evanston. And again, this is buried in the article, but if you go down and you keep looking at it, it assumes that because the focus of these reparations are on housing, it confirms a negative stereotype that people of color can't handle their money and discriminates against people who may be due reparations but don't own a home and they don't plan to own a home. Again, 16 people are able to get this immediately. And for those in the future, and you may or may not be one of them, and you don't want a home, how is this helping you? That's a good question. And she is asking that question. They even go further and they ask, why are we saying that this 20-year-old can buy a new home in Evanston, Illinois, and the 80-year-old is still waiting? So it seems the reparations bill is targeted towards the youth at the disadvantage of those who are older, those who have been trying, those who may have actually suffered from the Jim Crow, the redlining, those who could have been alive long enough to actually have suffered the very thing that they are trying to repair and to pay back. There's a problem. Of course, there are solutions to this, like in Oakland, California. In Oakland, California, there's a program with $6.7 million, and they are giving payments to 600 families, low-income families, of $500 a month. And this came out today, March 23rd. And this is an alternative and perhaps a better idea. Private citizens came together, pooled their money together, and created an organization to pay the poorest of their community $500 a month. As long as those individuals have a child that's under the age of 18 and they're poor. Sadly, if you happen to be anything but black, if you're not a person of color, well, then you don't get that money. So they're willing to help poor people, people who are in need of financial help, but they're not willing to do that for everyone, just people of a certain color. It's very racially motivated. It's racist and segregationist. But it is an alternative. an alternative that can help certain people. And they allege that this program and this idea does help people, to help them get jobs and to move forward in their life. I would say that the way they've structured it, it sounds like it helps people, single mothers with no fathers, single parent households who are poor, to have more kids to get more money. But it's not my program to decide, and that's their community. And if they think that's the right thing to do, if they think it's right to spend their donations giving $1,000 a month to pregnant Black and Pacific Islander women for the duration of their pregnancies and for the 6 months of their babies' lives, and if they're willing to deal with a community that may have more women getting pregnant without being married, without being able to support those kids to get those $1,000 checks, you're talking about 15 months. That's $15,000. That's an incentive. And if they're willing to take care of that potential incentive in their communities to help these families, I have no argument with that. But it is still upsetting that one of the things they're looking at is, but only if you have the right color, which is segregationist, which is racist. And that's in 2021. So when I look at the entire issue of reparations, comparing myself at 37 to myself at 53, when I look at the goal in 2005 versus the goal in 2021, I don't see the same thing. So let me say this in conclusion. I do believe reparations can make sense. I do think it's a positive idea. I do believe that it is part of a program to help end racism if it is approached from that manner. That is the end goal, to end racism, to end the argument that has been beleaguering America since 1619. That's not the goal in 2021. The goal in 2021 is to reward certain people for political support, to gain and engender more people dependent on a very specific political ideology to be able to get more money. And they are mislabeling this and advertising this as free money. There is nothing required as long as you're the right color. And people who aren't the right color, well, they're the bad guys and they need to be punished. I don't agree with that. I'll never agree with that. No one should agree with that. Because one day you're going to be the wrong color. You're going to be the people who are on the bad end of that discussion. It is no different than the ideology and the mentality that led to slavery in the first place. It dehumanizes people. So, do I support reparations in 2021? No, I really don't. Because its goal at the end of the day isn't to bring people together. It's not to raise people up. It's meant as a punishment. It achieves none of the things that I had hoped for when I was 37, and it looks forward to do nothing positive for this nation. We have ideas. Perhaps we will work on these ideas. But at the moment, I'm afraid we're just going to copycat the bad ideas that we have right now and push this agenda that will create more racism than it's going to ever end. But I want to hear what you have to say. What do you think about this? What is your experience? Do you think that by punishing people of one color, we can help people of another color, and that's a good thing? I truly want to hear your thoughts on that. And of course, I would love to see you every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our live stream. And hearing your voice and your expression of free speech. We thank you for being with us. Please, if you have liked this, like it, share it, and most of all, do subscribe so that we can continue this expression of free speech for all of us. I thank you.